Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope everybody is doing well. Well, I want to start this video off by saying if you haven't watched my previous video where I shared a very personal story and I talk about mental health and the topic of suicide, just know in the beginning of that, I would encourage you to make sure you watch the disclaimer that I have on there. I'm referencing that because I'm doing a little bit of a follow-up to that one, but I wanted to make mention of that in case you decide to hop over to see what I'm talking about. But there's a full-out disclaimer because I cover some very heavy topics and they're personal in nature, but I also realize that they're topics that can be triggers for people, so I just wanted to say that up front. And so today I entitled this video Grieving on Purpose, just kind of a little bit of a play on words with the process of grief and then also the process of living within your purpose. And so in order to live in your purpose, whatever that looks like for you, because all of us have a very different purpose, there has to be some intentionality in being introspective and working on yourself as a person. I would argue, okay, that most people who are really, truly tapping into and living within their purpose have done some work on themselves, have done some personal growth, have learned about themselves, and have also dealt with a lot of the issues or the wounds in their lives that could cause us to get, stagnated at a certain point if they're not dealt with, right? And so going along that, kind of that reasoning, I do want to talk a little bit more about grief. Obviously, when we hear the word grief, oftentimes we associate that with the death of a loved one. I am in the middle of that. I'm still processing my grief, and I anticipate it will take some time to process the loss of my brother. But it also, when we talk about grief, it's not just associated with the loss of a loved one. Grief is an intense feeling of loss of anything. So it could be the loss of a relationship. It could be the loss of a job. It could be the loss of a home. I experienced that when I had my house fire and often say, God removed the 3 big P's in my life during that time: people, possessions, and property, right? And so I had to go through this process of grief of losing so many of those things. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there are so many wounded people walking around. There really are. It comes out. Grief will always come out at some point in your life if it is not dealt with, okay? And so one of the things that I want to encourage you today is to really stop and think about those areas in your life where you have lost something or someone very significant to you, but maybe, just maybe, there's something in you that feels like you don't want to, deal with those uncomfortable feelings. Whatever, everybody's grief looks different, right? And this is not for me to say that, a lot of times for people it's tears, it's anger, it's frustration, and all of those things, but it will definitely play out very differently for each person. So this week you have a homework assignment from Professor Campbell, okay? And so what that homework assignment is to really think about what is it that you have lost that has maybe caused you to experience some of those negative feelings, and you can kind of be introspective and, self-aware and say, you know what? I haven't dealt with that in the way that I probably should, right? Because it's uncomfortable, right? And to grow, we got to get comfortable being uncomfortable and deal with those things that we oftentimes don't want to do. Because if we are intentional and we really do truly want to live in our purpose, whatever your purpose looks like for you, it's going to cause some issues of being able to really live in your purpose. Because think about it. Whatever your purpose is, and I would often say that your purpose is going to have some component to it of giving back, helping people. It should not just be focused on yourself, right? And so if you are that type of person, and if you are the type of person that truly wants to live in their purpose, we got to do the heavy lifting too. And that means that we have to grieve on purpose. We have to grieve those things that we have lost, and figure out what works for you as far as your grief process. I try to be as personal without being too personal, if that makes sense, in my videos. And so grief for me is a lot of tears. I mean, I'm an empath, I'm sensitive, all those things. So it's easy for me to cry. I can cry on a commercial, but I feel that release when I cry. I don't think necessarily my grief shows up necessarily in anger, but definitely sadness, definitely in isolation. It's easy for me to isolate myself. And so I have to be aware of those things. And so, that's why I utilize counseling. That's why I definitely lean on my faith. And I have noticed a difference when I do grieve on purpose, when I grieve, whether it's a relationship, whether it's things, whether it's people, property, possessions, whatever that looks like, that you have lost. So that is my encouragement for you today, is to take some time, be introspective, think about those things that maybe, you don't want them to pop up later that will hinder you from living in your purpose. And sometimes we do have to take the time to grieve on purpose. So I hope that helps somebody, at least one person, and I hope you have a wonderful week or weekend, and I will see y'all on the next video.